Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Camper Report. We're about 30 minutes later than what I originally said I'd be going live at. I rescheduled it to 8:30. Now it is 8. We're a few minutes late, but we're here. We're going to talk 40 Eagles versus Chiefs game that occurred last night. Some of what I took away from it. It's not going to be a huge show. Then we're going to talk about 49ers versus Seahawks matchup. We're going to kind of talk about matching up the 49ers and Eagles. And then we're going to talk about news that broke today. Darius Leonard, or Shaquille Leonard, one of the best linebackers in the league just a few years ago, getting released from the Colts. So we're going to break that all down. Let's get into it, though. Reacting to the Eagles win over the Chiefs. This was the Monday Night Football game. Really, I mean, quite frankly, was a game that I did not expect. Although I did not know that there was going to be rain in Arrowhead. If I would have known that, I probably would have projected, because originally I projected this game, Chiefs to win 38-34. And I said, the Chiefs, they both have weaknesses, but I think the fact that the Chiefs are going to be able to feed Travis Kelce a lot. I said the fact that the Chiefs have a good offensive line is why the Chiefs will win. And I thought it was going to be a high-scoring game. Turns out it was raining. The Eagles did a really good job at covering Travis Kelce. The rain obviously kind of helped the Eagles a little bit in the rain. And so we got a much more low-scoring type of game. 21-17. The Chiefs actually were shut out in the second half. So let's get into it, though. Let's kind of break what I kind of got out of this game. And then also, guys, we'll probably be going live this next Saturday to react. Well, after the 49ers Seahawks game on Thursday night, but I'll be probably going live. And then on Saturday, I'll also be going live, maybe with a guest. I need to get more guests on. It's been tough, though. Eagles versus Chiefs. So, and again, I'll be breaking down the 49ers versus Seahawks game in just a second, but let's get to the Eagles versus Chiefs matchup and kind of my reactions. Neither quarterback played really well. Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts was 14 for 22, 150 yards and an interception. So it was not a great day for him. But again, like I said, the rain really impeded his ability to make a ton of those throws that he would normally make. Patrick Mahomes, 24 for 43. Again, rain wasn't great, but there were quite a few drops, especially at the end there where Travis Kelce had a fumble. Travis Kelce dropped a few passes at the end there. We saw, I believe, the tight end number 84. I can't remember his name. Something Watson dropped a pass. I know the famous Marquez Valdez-Scantling deep ball that got dropped by Patrick Mahomes. That could have been potentially the game-winning touchdown. Although there was still time on the clock, so the Eagles maybe could have gone down and tied it up with a field goal. So that was a factor. That's why his numbers were a little bit less than what they should have been, 24 for 43. They also had I believe they had I think they had 8 drops in this game. So there were quite a few drops, but a big also reason why his stats weren't good was because he had pressure in his face the whole time. I mean, Jalen Carter really was a star of this game. And a fun fact, he is the 3rd highest pressure rate out of any defensive tackle in the league, behind Aaron Donald and I cannot remember the other guy, but 3rd highest. Really, Jalen Carter should win Defensive Player of the Year this year because he's been huge. Not sure how he dropped to the 10th pick to the Eagles. He should have gone number 1 or 2 because he is showing exactly why he is a star in this league. And what I always didn't get was, it's not even like he had off-field issues, but it's not even really like he had off-field issues. Like, he made a really bad mistake. He was speeding with his friend. He made a really bad mistake. But I'm sure something like that he's never going to do again because it was so traumatizing. So I don't know. It's not like he was doing anything like worse than just driving fast. Like, I don't know. I never put a ton of stock into his off-the-field issues, and he's playing at a very high level right now. But yeah, I mean, even on the Patrick Mahomes throw, back to the point, even on the Patrick Mahomes throw to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I mean, Scantling was getting Patrick Mahomes was getting hit on that deep throw that Scantling at the end of the game that he dropped. Patrick Mahomes, if you see it, I mean, when he launches it up in the air, there's pressure in his face. He almost launched it like he threw it off of his back foot, and he had pressure in his face. So there was pressure a lot on Patrick Mahomes. And this offensive line, like I said, is no pushover. I mean, they were, statistically a top 5 offensive line in this league, and the Eagles gave them trouble. They really did. Now, I will say that there's no like elite receiver on the Chiefs defense, and it's easy to kind of shut down Travis Kelce when there's no other threat that you really have to double cover. Maybe you could argue Rashee Rice is that guy and can become that guy, but right now I don't think he's really that type of player yet. I mean, I was telling my brother last night that the Chiefs really actually took a step down offensively from last year. They lost Juju Smith-Schuster, right? Who was a huge part in the playoffs, huge contribution in the playoffs. And I mean, this year, it's almost like they don't like in previous years, in previous Super Bowl years that they have had, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And then you also had fully healthy Mecole Hardman, and you also had I'm trying to think of other guys that were on that, especially that 2019 year. But my point is, in years previous that the Chiefs have went to the Super Bowl, they've had other elite guys on that team except Travis Kelce. It seems like this year it's Travis Kelce and the field. So that's kind of, this game kind of amplified that even more, that statement even more. And as soon as the Chiefs faced a really elite defense, they didn't look very good. Another thing is they didn't really commit to the run. Like, I want to say Pacheco ran it 19 times, and the Eagles gave up 4.7 yards per carry to Pacheco. But late in that game, the Chiefs almost got a little too pass happy. I feel like, especially in the second half when they were up, they should have just been running the ball at will because the Eagles were getting gashed in the run game. And so that's another thing. The Eagles O-line didn't look really that good. I mean, they gave up 3 sacks, and there was times when, Chris Jones would just, there was a few plays where I was looking, Chris Jones just sideswipes his offensive lineman and goes straight to Jalen Hurts. So the offensive line for the Eagles did not look very good. And if you're comparing this matchup to the 49ers game in a few weeks, I mean, the 49ers arguably, they have a better defensive line, I'd say, than the Chiefs do on paper. Now, the Chiefs have more sacks than the 49ers, but on paper, the 49ers really do have a better defensive line than the Chiefs. So that's an advantage that the 49ers really have over the Eagles. The Eagles used to have a very strong offensive line. I did not see that today. I really did not. And again, that could have been because of the rain. So, that's a concern that the Eagles need to watch out for. And another thing, right? The Eagles, I didn't see them commit to the run either. Neither team really committed. The Eagles should have ran the ball more, especially in the first half. That's why they got down. I said that, if the Eagles play their style of football, if they run the ball and play physical, they're going to beat the Chiefs. They need to play to their tempo. I feel like in that first half, they weren't running the ball. They weren't playing physical, and they were kind of playing to the tempo of the Chiefs. They kind of settled in the second half, had a good second half, but they need to, I think, just commit more to the run, because when they do, they're successful. And so that's another thing is, like, against the 49ers, who have, I think, a better defense than the Chiefs do, you're going to have to play a more physical style of football. And I don't know if the Eagles want to do that. I don't know if they want to commit to that. And that's why I think the 49ers could really have an advantage over them on the defensive side of the ball. But also look for the 49ers to run the ball at will when they play the Eagles, because, the Eagles were not doing well against Pacheco, and we all know that Christian McCaffrey is a better running back. So look for the 49ers to run the ball on the Eagles. And I will say, going back to the point of the Eagles need to run the ball more, when they were having success in that first half, in that first touchdown drive, they did a few motion plays to DeAndre Swift. They were running it a little bit more. It was a little bit more of a balanced, offensive system. And then they kind of went away from that. So, but yeah, the 49ers expect the 49ers to run it down their throats. And I think one other thing is, matching. So that's kind of what I saw from the game. Pressure a lot on both quarterbacks. The Eagles' offensive line isn't as great as, we kind of have been accustomed to them being. The Chiefs' offense has no real elite weapons except from Travis Kelce. So that's kind of a few notes that I made from that game. And then kind of matching up the Eagles and Niners from what I saw in this game. Their defensive, the 49ers, well, I guess I could start with the 49ers offensive side of the ball. The 49ers offensive side of the ball, it's concerning because I don't know what the timetable is for Aaron Banks, but he needs to come back because, what I saw, the Buccaneers, Vita Vea was the one bright spot on that Buccaneers defense, and that's because he was doing very well against the 49ers interior offensive line. What I saw from Jalen Carter, what I saw from the Eagles defensive line in general is they can get pressure. They can get pressure with four guys. And so it's the same kind of disadvantage that the 49ers had last year in the NFC Championship game, and they're going to have to deal with it again this year. Hopefully, Kyle Shanahan can do a better job of drawing up plays that gets Brock Purdy out of that situation more of pressure. But Jalen Carter, man, and Hassan Reddick are going to get after him a lot. So that's kind of a concern. Now, the Eagles, I think cornerbacks, very overrated. A few times where, the Chiefs were beating them deep. There were a few drops. There were also a few completions. I think, and also we know that the Eagles linebacking core is not that great. It really isn't. And so if it's not raining in Philadelphia when the 49ers play them, expect the 49ers to go after George Kittle like they tend to do a lot in the second half, kind of do those bootlegs we saw against the Buccaneers, and they tend to do that. And Brock Purdy has a great chemistry with George Kittle. So if the 49ers can create time, a little bit of time for Brock Purdy, we can tear him up. Because I think Brandon Ayuk is going to own the Eagles cornerbacks. And I think that George Kittle can really do a number. I also just think that Travis Kelce yesterday, the reason why he wasn't doing as good is, the rain really impeded that ability. Though other weakness, so let's move on to the defensive side of the ball for the 49ers. I don't think there's a lot of weaknesses here, but I will say that Devontae Smith, his deep threat down the field, that's... If the 49ers are going to win, if the 49ers are going to match up well with the Eagles, it's just rushing forward, which I think we can do. Do not blitz. And also, if the 49ers in the last few weeks have more changed to a man-to-man, press man-to-man scheme. If they're going to continue with that scheme, they need to put two safeties deep. They can't play single high. They have to put two safeties deep because the Eagles, when Jalen Hurts gets enough time, the Eagles are lethal downfield with Devontae Smith. They really are. And so the 49ers need to play four-man rush, two safeties over the top because I think that, our linebackers are good enough in coverage to where I think we can live. And also, you just don't want to get beat deep because the Eagles, especially in this game, proved they are a good deep team for sure. And it's a tough offense. So those are kind of some of the weaknesses. I do think that our defensive line is going to do very well against the 49ers, the Eagles offensive line, and we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Moving on. 49ers versus Seahawks. This game is the last Thursday night Thanksgiving game, 6:30 Mountain Time, which would be 5:30 Pacific Time, 8:30 Eastern Time. Great game. This game is really, really good. It's probably one of the best Thanksgiving games that I've seen in a while. except for maybe, I feel like the last Thanksgiving game, my brother reminded me that this Thanksgiving game was really good. I believe it was in 2019. It was Saints versus Falcons, and that was a really good Thanksgiving game as well. But this is one of the best I've seen in quite a while. 49ers versus Seahawks, just how the schedule makers made it. I really like this matchup. Let's start with the first. The Seahawks have 3 solid receivers, and the 49ers really haven't faced a team that has 3 really good receivers: Jackson Smith-Njigba, Tyler Lockett, and DK Metcalf. All guys who can get open one-on-one. So how do you defend this team? Because I was talking about the Eagles and their deep threat. The Seahawks have a deep threat in Tyler Lockett as well. Jackson Smith-Njigba could do really well against potentially Ambry Thomas, who's most likely starting in this game. And so the 49ers have 2 solid cornerbacks. We know that. Lenore is, I think, starting to ascend into the more than solid category. But right now, the 49ers have 2 solid cornerbacks. Who's going to cover the third guy on the Eagles? Ambry Thomas? That's a matchup I don't want to see. Because all year we've played a team that, the Browns, that game was in rainy weather, so the passing game was impeded a little bit. But they had Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore as their 2 receivers. I can't remember a team that actually has 3 really good receivers on it. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. Seahawks offensive line, not bad. I mean, Charles Cross, I would say, has taken a little bit of a step down this year. His PFF grade isn't great, 68.3, but he still has a great pass blocking grade, 74.9. So he's not a terrible tackle. I do think that whenever you're facing Nick Bosa, you're going to look bad. And the interior offensive line, I mean, you look across the board here, is nowhere near elite. None of these guys are nowhere near elite on the interior offensive line. I'm pretty sure Evan Brown is their starting center, if I can remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Evan Brown is their starting center. But he doesn't have a great grade, and his stats don't look great. So expect the Niners to get pressure on the interior. Like I said, the Buccaneers, their interior offensive line was not good. And the Seahawks interior offensive line and offensive line in general doesn't look the greatest. And so I think the 49ers could get pressure there. And this is, again, a mismatch that the 49ers had, just like they had last week. So pressure up the middle is going to be key. Running the ball. Seahawks have quite a good run game. Obviously, we know that they have Kenneth Walker, and then they have a really good change of pace back, kind of goal line back in Zach Charbonnet. That's going to be key. But the 49ers have done a really good job at defending the run all year. So we'll see what I know that, Geno Smith isn't coming into this game fully healthy with an elbow injury. So I expect the Seahawks to maybe get a little bit more run happy in this game. And that could probably bode well for the Seahawks, because that will obviously take away possession from the 49ers offense, which I think is going to do very well. And so, hey, maybe they do good. And I think the Seahawks, when they have played the 49ers, it's either been Russell Wilson putting on a show or the Seahawks just running the hell out of the ball. I think they're going to try to run the heck out of the ball, because if you're trusting Geno Smith to go down the field with it, I know the Seahawks have really good receivers, but it comes down to the point of how good is this offensive line? How long are they going to hold up versus the vaunted 49ers defensive line? So expect them to run the ball a lot. Defensively for the Seahawks, we all know that they have 2 very good cornerbacks, Devon Witherspoon and Tariq Woolen. So expect them to really, that's a good matchup. One of the key matchups, Devon Witherspoon versus Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk, top 5 route runner, in my opinion, in the league, versus a top 5 cornerback, arguably, in Devon Witherspoon. That's going to be a so fun matchup to watch, let me tell you. And Seahawks, They addressed a much needed position at the deadline, and one of those guys is Leonard Williams. They traded for him from the Giants. He's a Pro Bowl defensive lineman. And when we played the Giants earlier this year, Leonard Williams actually was on that Giants team. And I go back to that game, and obviously the Giants didn't do much against the 49ers on Thursday night. But I went back to that game and watched Leonard Williams, and he looked really good versus the 49ers offensive line. So they have him in the interior. I think this game, we all tend to underestimate the Seahawks defensive line, but they have some guys on that defensive line that could give us problems, especially in pass protection. This is going to be a good test leading up into the Eagles game. This is going to be a good test because they also have Boye Mafe, who has a good grade. They have Uchenna Nwosu, who has a decent grade. So, they have three guys, Leonard Williams, Boye Mafe, Uchenna Nwosu. Not necessarily elite, but I think they're better than what the Buccaneers pass rush had. Because the Buccaneers, and except from Vita Vea, did not make a dent in the 49ers offensive line. Well, did not do very well necessarily. So if the Seattle Seahawks were smart, I ultimately think they're going to play the game defensively like this. They're going to play it. They're going to blitz Brock Purdy, and they're going to trust that their cornerbacks, which are two very good cornerbacks, are going to play well and one-on-one. Because I think they have the cornerbacks to play that style of football. So, it might not be the right way, but I think they're going to play it that way. We've seen what Brock Purdy does against the blitz. He's very good against it, but I just think that the Seahawks actually have good enough corners to where they can play that type of style of football one-on-one. So that's how I think they're going to attack, a little bit more blitzes, because even though they have decent pass rushers, I don't think they're going to be able to get to Brock Purdy so quickly that they're going to be able to play zone coverage. So expect one-on-one blitzes. My final score to this game, I think the 49ers are going to be able to beat them. I think that Geno Smith, when you have him at the helm, yes, the Seahawks are not good without Geno Smith, but Geno Smith, I think, is 0-3 against the Niners. Not great. And I just think the pressure is going to get to him. I think that the 49ers are going to be able to run the ball well against this team, and Brock Purdy's going to continue to cook. So without further ado, it's in Seattle. I'm going to say the 49ers get to 27 points. It's 27-23 in this game. And I think the Seahawks are going to score more than 20 points because the Seahawks have an array of talent on the offensive side of the ball. And I think that Tyler Lockett, if you're telling me that Tyler Lockett, they're going to line him up in this outside, I think the Seahawks are going to, in this game, end up getting a few big plays because Tyler Lockett versus Ambry Thomas is not a matchup I want to see, and I think he's going to break out for a few big plays in this game. So I think it's 23-27. Niners get the win, though. So that was kind of a long-winded breakdown. I don't know when I started doing that. I think it was a 10-minute. It's a long-winded breakdown, but it's a big game. It's a big game. And whoever wins this game is number one in the division. So long-winded, but that's kind of my thoughts. Darius Leonard, and I kind of went through the whole team, matched up the whole team. Darius Leonard released from the Colts. I thought his name was Darius Leonard. Now it's Shaquille Leonard. I thought it was Darius, but released from Colts. So today they announced that they had released Shaquille Leonard or Darius Leonard from the Colts. It's funny because I've always known him as Darius Leonard, and then on PFF it's marked as Shaquille Leonard. Smash that like button. Thank you. And by the way, guys, since I've come back a little bit more consistently making content creation, I've gotten you guys definitely supporting a lot. I just got over 500 subscribers yesterday. And the views have been popping off a little bit. And so, thanks, Scott, you guys, for the support. But I'll be posting clips from this video as well, this live as well. But what are my thoughts? Who should get Darius Leonard? Because let's quickly pull up the stats from this line. I think the 49ers, like, this could be an interesting, as a third linebacker, I would not hate the 49ers getting him. And Darius Leonard at this point, he's 28 and a half. And he's getting, to me, I have his stats pulled up right here. His last really good season was in 2021, where he had a good season in 2021. 2022, he was injured a lot of the year. This year, I believe he got benched or just wasn't playing a whole ton in 2023. So his last good year was really 2020, and he used to be an all-pro linebacker. And I still think, it's funny because on bad teams, I give this analogy a lot. On bad teams, good players tend to look worse. And so, this could be a situation of if he and at this point in his career, he's 28. Linebackers don't have that much of a shelf life. This could be a situation where he wants to go to a contender. And again, like I said before, I compare this situation to kind of like what Odell Beckham, he was getting injured all the time with the Colts. I'm sorry, Colts, Browns. He was getting injured all the time with the Browns and he wasn't playing that well. And then as soon as he went to a contender like the Rams, he all of a sudden was really good. So in my opinion, if Darius Leonard, he hasn't looked great, but if Darius Leonard, goes to a contender, he's gonna look good. That being said, who do I think will land him out of, so if we're talking about contenders, that means Chiefs, Eagles, 49ers, Ravens could even be in that conversation. Bengals potentially, even though they lost Joe Burrow, they're still kind of in it. So contender, but the contender I think will get him is probably the Eagles. They have given up 130, I believe, quarterback rating when quarterbacks have targeted tight ends this season. So they don't have good tight ends at all. And so I think the Eagles are the front runner right now to get him. And I definitely think, I think if you're an odds maker, there's like a 70-80% chance that they will land him. It looks like a great place. He'll be able to start automatically. 49ers could land him, although, maybe as a third linebacker, but he's not, if they land him, he's not really going to be starting right away, and he's probably not going to get very many snaps. So I don't know if the Niners get him, but we'll see. We'll see. So that's kind of release from Colts. I could actually, let me quickly look up the details of the trade before I get out of here. Again, probably on Saturday, guys, I'll react to the Seahawks versus 49ers game, and then I'll probably break down a few more of the matchups that we have on Sunday. And by the way, the Thanksgiving games before that, Cowboys, Commanders, that's not going to be that good game. And then Green Bay Lions is the early game, the 11 o'clock game. That could be interesting. Green Bay versus the Green Bay Packers versus Lions. Let's see. Darius Leonard. Yeah, so with a base salary of $15.6 million, Leonard is due $6.1 million for the rest of the year. So they saved around $11.5 million. I don't think this was a good cutting at all, but it's Jim Irsay. He makes questionable front office moves all the time. He's known for doing that. So good luck to the Colts in full rebuild. I'm not sure why the heck they did this at all, because why wouldn't you just keep him on instead of cutting him? At least keep him on and try to trade him at the end of the year. Don't know why they did that. So all power to you, Darius Leonard. I hope wherever you go next will be a good place. Real quick, guys, before I get out of here, if you want to make live streams like this, like I am doing right now, I would recommend using StreamYard, which is the platform that I am using right now. Go to StreamYard.com. a great site, a great streaming site for beginners. This is the streaming site when I first started doing live stream. This is the streaming site that I started using. I mean, for beginners, it's perfect. It's really simple to use. So if you want to start creating live streams, doing content creation, really simple to use StreamYard. And if you sign up with my link down below, you'll get $10 off of your first purchase. You'll get $10 in credit. So go and do it. Go and smash that link because I promise if you want to start content creation, you will not be sorry because it is one of the easiest and simplest things to use. So guys, have a good rest of your evening. I'm going to go do the dishes and probably go to bed because I am exhausted and wiped out. But I'll be back probably on Saturday or Thursday night after the Niners game. I'll be posting clips from this stream. Go have a good rest of your night, everyone, and have a happy Thanksgiving. I forgot to say happy Thanksgiving. Have a happy Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving, everyone. Good night.